Imagine being in the middle of a frozen mountain, surrounded by nothing but snow, wind, and darkness. Suddenly, something happens that makes you abandon the only protection you have against the deadly cold of the night. It sounds irrational, almost impossible, yet in 1959, that is exactly what happened. 9 experienced hikers cut their way out of their own tent from the inside, and ran into the freezing night. No boots. No proper clothing. No clear explanation. For decades, investigators have tried to understand what could have caused such a desperate decision. Avalanches, secret military experiments, strange natural phenomena, all of these theories have been considered. Yet none of them fully explain what investigators discovered on that mountain. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most mysterious and disturbing cases in modern history. Because when you start looking closely at what really happened that night, some pieces of the puzzle simply do not fit. The expedition. In the winter of 1959, 9 young and experienced hikers set out on an expedition in the remote Ural Mountains of Russia. They were students, athletes, and adventurers used to extreme conditions, people who had already faced deep snow, freezing winds, and long journeys through hostile terrain. For them, this expedition was more than a simple adventure. It was a test of endurance, courage, and determination. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, was known among his friends as someone disciplined, organized, and extremely careful with every expedition he planned. He studied the route, organized supplies, and ensured the group had the right equipment to face temperatures that could drop below -30 degrees Celsius. For experienced hikers, preparation is everything. Every decision can mean the difference between safety and disaster. And by all accounts, the group seemed fully prepared. During the first days of the journey, everything appeared normal. Photographs taken by the group show smiling faces, snow-covered landscapes, and the quiet excitement of a winter expedition. Nothing in those images suggests fear. Nothing suggests danger. But something would change on that mountain. Something that would transform this journey into a mystery that continues to puzzle investigators to this day. The night everything changed. On the evening of February 1st, the group decided to set up camp on the slope of a mountain known as Koletsyakal. The name itself carried an ominous meaning in the local language. It roughly translates to Mountain of the Dead. Despite the name, there was no reason for alarm. The hikers had faced many difficult terrains before. Darkness was approaching, and continuing the journey through the night would have been dangerous. So they pitched their tent on the snowy slope and prepared to rest after a long day of travel. The wind howled across the mountain. Temperatures dropped well below freezing. But for experienced hikers like them, this was nothing unusual. Inside the tent, they organized their gear, shared food, and tried to warm themselves before sleeping. And then, something happened. Something so sudden, so frightening, that all 9 hikers made a decision that still confuses investigators today. At some point during that night, the group cut their way out of the tent from the inside. Not through the entrance, but through the fabric itself. As if escaping quickly was more important than using the door. Even more disturbing, when rescuers later found the tent, they discovered that the hikers had left behind their boots, their coats, and most of their equipment. They had stepped out into the freezing darkness without proper protection. For experienced hikers, this makes no sense. No one leaves their only shelter in the middle of a frozen mountain without a very serious reason. So what could have terrified them enough to do that? The discovery. Weeks later, when search teams finally reached the campsite, they found the tent partially buried under snow. At first glance, the scene seemed eerily quiet. No signs of a struggle. No signs of animal attacks. Just the wind sweeping across the empty slope. But as investigators approached the tent, the disturbing details became impossible to ignore. The fabric had been cut open from the inside. Inside the tent were boots, clothing, personal belongings, and equipment that no experienced hiker would ever willingly abandon. Something had forced them out. Something urgent enough to send them into the freezing night. Following the footprints in the snow, rescuers discovered tracks leading down the slope toward a nearby forest. What puzzled investigators even more was the nature of those tracks. They did not show signs of panic. The footprints suggested the hikers had walked calmly down the mountain. As if whatever forced them out of the tent had not been chasing them. But that only made the mystery deeper. Why leave the tent without boots? Why walk into the deadly cold? What were they escaping from? The bodies. Near the edge of the forest, search teams found the first 2 bodies. They were lying close to the remains of a small fire. Both were almost completely undressed despite the freezing temperatures. Nearby, investigators noticed that the branches of a tall tree were broken several meters above the ground. It appeared that one of the hikers had climbed the tree. Possibly to look back toward the campsite. Perhaps they were trying to see something happening up there. Something they feared. Further searches revealed 3 more bodies scattered between the forest and the tent. Their position suggested they had attempted to return to the campsite. But they never made it. Weeks later, the final 4 hikers were discovered buried under deep snow in a nearby ravine. And this discovery raised even more disturbing questions. Some of them had severe internal injuries, comparable to those seen in high-speed car crashes. Yet their bodies showed almost no external wounds. One victim was missing her tongue. Others had unusual facial injuries. For investigators, the evidence seemed almost impossible to explain. Theories. Over the years, many theories have tried to explain what happened that night. Some believe the group may have been forced out of the tent by a sudden avalanche. Others suggest secret military testing in the region, especially because witnesses reported strange lights in the sky around that time. There are also theories involving rare natural phenomena capable of causing intense panic or disorientation. Yet none of these explanations fully account for all the evidence. And that is what continues to make the Dyatlov Pass incident so disturbing. Because even after decades of investigation, one question remains unanswered. What really happened on that frozen mountain, that made 9 experienced hikers abandon their only shelter and walk into the deadly night? The Dyatlov Pass incident reminds us of something unsettling. Even in a world filled with science, technology, and modern investigation methods, there are still mysteries that refuse to be solved. Stories that leave more questions than answers. And sometimes, the truth behind those stories may remain hidden forever. So now the question turns to you. What do you think really happened on that mountain? Was it a natural disaster? A military secret? Or something we still do not understand? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you enjoy real mysterious stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because there are many more unexplained cases waiting to be explored.